Today is the 2nd of April, the World Autism Awareness Day. Night of Illusions together with Learning Bridge and HasH33 decided to do something about it. So today we want to talk about different indicators of a possible autistic child. And to give what autism is in a nutshell, it's a developmental disorder that varies in severity. And it is characterized by decreased communication skills and repetitive behavior and patterns of behavior and interests, among other deficits and delays. So to talk about it today, we have Ms. Nicola Feldman, who is a child developmental psychologist and also a specialist in early childhood intervention. So over to her to explain the indicators.
One early indication of a developmental delay is if a child doesn't start to babble by around 5 months of age. Another would be by around 6 months of age if your child is making no attempt to respond to your smiles or any movements such as basic head movements. A child with autism will typically also avoid eye contact, so it's important to make sure that your child is responding to you. By around 10 months, a child will have knowledge of their name and they will begin to respond to their name. They will also want to seek attention of caregivers and parents. Generally, a child with autism will not seek the attention of others, nor will they make any attempt to pay attention to others. At the 12-month mark, a child will ideally begin to wave, point, and grasp at objects, and also begin to start talking. A child with autism may show a delay in meeting this developmental landmark. Another observation to make is to gauge a child's sensitivity to sound and touch. Children with autism tend to be oversensitive or undersensitive to sound. For example, they may not like to be cuddled or touched often, or they might be very sensitive to sound that may not be very loud. So for example, sounds of common objects around the house like vacuum cleaners or blenders. They may even be sensitive to sound of certain toys that other typically developing kids may not. It's important to note if a child fixates on a particular object, such as a particular storybook, which they want to read all the time, or even a toy which they will want to hold all the time, or a part of a particular toy such as the wheels in a train or a car, which is quite common. Also during their playtime, they may tend to display some unusual behaviors such as lining up of objects. Repetitive movements is another important point to note. Children with autism will display specific stereotypic behaviors such as hand flapping or rocking back and forth or even excessive twirling. Also look for any rigidity in routine. For example, a child with autism will get very upset, hysterical almost, if anything in their routine is changed, such as their daily activities, from waking up to getting ready for breakfast or going to school, and even simple things such as sitting on a particular chair at the table. If it is changed, they may have a breakdown. By 18 months, a typically developing child would have a vocabulary of about a dozen words, and by 2 years, they should be speaking 2-word sentences. If you notice a delay in this, it may be a sign of autism, so it's important to make a note of this as well. In order to recognize the early signs of autism, it's important to pay attention to some developmental milestones. Also, having a vision and hearing test may be an option in order to rule out any physiological impairments. However, please do not assume that if a child displays these behaviors, that they necessarily have the disorder. Observe them carefully and bring your concerns to a pediatrician, who, if necessary, will direct you to a specialist.
So that's about it. what I want to say is, do not worry. These are just indicators. And even if your child is diagnosed of autism, there's hope. There's nothing to worry. Early childhood intervention would help it, and that's what we are for. So if you want to get in touch with us, please log on to nightofillusions.com or find us on Facebook, facebook.com/nightofillusions. That's KNIGHTOFILLUSIONS.